Well, hello. It is Tuesday, but it is also book club. I am Rachel Heine. Joining me, as always, is my pal, my good time guy, Maude Garrett.
I didn't bring wine.
Oh, that's okay.
Water for me.
I've been doing water most of the time when we've been doing that, so I'll take the mantle this week. And thanks to everyone at home for joining us. Cheers with your water.
Because I'm a mermaid.
There you go.
Because I'm a mermaid.
Yes, oh man, we are going to get into it today. I'm really excited because we are reading a spooky book that I quite enjoyed, and I am very much compartmentalizing what I know and what I don't know. But if you're just joining us, this is Nerdist Book Club. It's the best book club in the world. Online. I don't know if I want to claim.
Reese, Oprah, sit down.
Yeah, get out of here. Look at this production.
Are you kidding me? We got faces in here. Who's on here? It doesn't matter. We're the best.
But do they have wine? If you're new, please say hello in the chat. We're live on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, and we want to know all about you. Let us know who you are, what your favorite genre is, your favorite book. If you have read this book before, if you're just joining us, we want to hear from you. This week, we're talking about the first half. I know I'm getting a little jazzy. It's because I have wine.
You tell us about the book. I'm
Sure.
going to go in 30 seconds, and you're going to hear this noise, and it's going to go, and it's going to be great.
Okay, great. Sounds good. So this month, we're reading a book called Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. It is about killer. Wow, that was so fast. I didn't even get into reading about the book. I'm so proud of you.
As we say in Australia, we're not here to fuck spiders.
Yes, I agree. That's Miss Necromancer. I really would love to know which of her other books you like, because this is the only one I've read so far, and I definitely want to read more. But I will give a little bit of a blurb about the book before we dive into it, and then I want to hear what everyone thinks. What are you enjoying? And we'll get into the nitty-gritty. So here's the premise. 7 years ago, the A. Targatus set off on a voyage to the Mariana Trench to film a mockumentary bringing to life ancient sea creatures of legend. It was lost at sea with all hands. That's a weird turn of phrase, but basically everyone died. Some have called it a hoax. Some have called it a maritime tragedy. Now a new crew has been assembled, but this time they're not out to entertain. Some seek to validate their life's work. Some seek the greatest hunt of all. Some seek the truth. But for the ambitious young scientist Victoria Stewart, this is a voyage to uncover the fate of the sister she lost. Whatever the truth may be, it will only be found beneath the waves. But the secrets of the deep come with a price.
Price. There you have it. This is very different to what we've usually read. So usually we are a sci-fi fantasy kind of book club, but we have dabbled in horror and genre blends. I am really loving the break of genre. I have read a lot of fantasy and quite a bit of space sci-fi of late. So going into the deep has been really, really fun. And I also really like deconstructed fairy tales, where we kind of like have a really new spin on a traditional fairy tale lore. I've read a couple of books like that over the years. One of the ones that I've really liked, an Australian author called Kate Forsyth did a really cool retelling and imagining of Rapunzel, which I really enjoyed. And I think that that's quite there's a huge subsection of deconstructing fairy tales. I really like, what Game Wizard 001 just said. Love this book. Reminds me of Michael Crichton, like Jurassic Park and Andromeda Strain. And I think I can sort of use my liberty to dissect the fact that this is very science-based thriller. So it is either a combination of sort of like what science itself can create or what science is trying to discover. And I really love and appreciate hearing this terminology of scientists, and forming these team teams of brilliance to try and uncover a truth. That's a lot of fun. This is reminding me a lot of those deep sea kind of movies where it's like Meg with the megalodon.
Loved that movie.
There's another one. Samuel L. Jackson is in
Deep
it
Blue
with
Sea,
that's the
there's
one.
oh yeah, I was talking with Allison, who is behind the scenes right now at Nerdist. She's a big horror fan, and I was talking about how I am the things that scare me the most, especially in stories, deep space and deep ocean,
Big.
because they're so big, you can't wrap your head around them. And I just want to point out the reality that 80% of the ocean has not been explored by humans.
So I
80%.
can't believe
What else could be out there? So many things.
I went on a great one-time date, wish there was a second, but went into big alien theories, and it was amazing, and I'm a very
What did
curious
they talk
person
about
by nature.
the sea being like a gateway to the sky? Have you read that one? Because that one's
No,
crazy.
but aliens are here, and because it's so undiscovered, it's a perfect terrain for them to kind of like do their stuff, and we have no idea. So maybe there's aliens in that as well. Maybe I need to date better. Well, no, I loved it. I loved hearing all that
That's
kind of stuff.
great. No, I totally agree though. I think I love a good just wild deep dive into like cryptozoology, which I feel like this is a little bit of that, where it is science based. And I was wondering kind of how you and everyone else following along felt about how deep they go into the science, how they sort of communicate it. But it's also sort of, it takes, like you said, that fairy tale, but also a little science fiction and a good dose of horror and sort of a very human, like I really love getting to know all of the characters and all of their different motivations. And but yeah, Maude, I wanted to know what you kind of thought about the science within the science horror.
So I think there are a couple of authors that do science so well that the information doesn't feel like you're learning. It feels like it's so sort of like digestible, palatable, that you are understanding everything that's happened, and it furthers the narrative. Michael Crichton is one of them. He is actually a scientist, and the way that he wrote about science was so digestible. It was so easy to understand what was going on, to the point where you were like, oh, this is totally doable. I buy everything that you're saying. Yes, we can make dinosaurs, dino DNA. And I think that Andy Weir is another one who is a massive space buff, who talks about sort of science and space and mass, molecular, all that kind of stuff. Yep, all that kind of stuff in a way where you're like, oh, cool, you're actually telling me how to navigate through gravity and make it make sense, and what can go wrong, and all that, biology, all that stuff. And I think for Mira Grant, whose real name is Shannon Maguire,
Shauna, sure.
Shannon Maguire, Shannon, has done a really, really good job of making the science really, really fascinating and interesting, but also having to understand the science from like 20 different fields, which are all unique in their own way. And I think that what you have here is a very simple premise that they present to you on a platter straight out the gate. People died. There's footage that they're mermaids. These mermaids look pretty messed up and they're violent and they killed everything. And we're going to go find them. But we are halfway through this book, and for a very simple premise, which we know exactly what we're getting into, has been really I've been enjoying these moments that it should be fluff, but they're not.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
They're pushing me through, and I'm like, there's no lulls. It's not like the ocean where there's swells and tides. I actually find the pacing to be really cool and really informative. And when there should be space between it, there's always something going on, or there's new characters that we get to meet. So I think she's doing a great job with world building, science explanation, and character development.
I totally agree. And I'm so glad that you feel that way too, because I think I love was again talking to Ali about this as well, but I am not a science person. I was a humanities person. I am fascinated by lots of scientific concepts, but I hate math. So I gave up very early in school on science and math. But I think science communication is such an important and rare skill. And I was talking about our good friend Kyle Hill, who we used to work with and now has his own amazing channel. But that's something that has always blown my mind because he would take these really complex ideas and explain them in a way, A, connecting them to pop culture, but B, that even I could understand, even I could understand them. And I feel that way in this book that you're learning about it all kind of feeds into each other, right? Because it is a character story. Like the premise is a great hook and like is starting, to pay off at the point where we're or where we're um this is what we're like together. Also, I took my glasses off because they are, I think they're so dirty that I like can't see very well. But I'm gonna keep adjusting my not glasses. So I'm just gonna call it out now because it's gonna happen a lot.
That's awesome.
Go back to my.
Book good?
Oh my gosh. Someone has been working on some cool potential designs. Her name is Allie. Well, book good. We'll talk about it after. But stay tuned on that, book club fans.
Let them smooch?
Not yes. All the idea, everything after Comic Con. For everyone who doesn't know, Comic Con starts tomorrow, and Maude.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to delete it.
Oh gosh, how do we do that?
I blocked. It feels good. I have power.
Okay, you have the ban button. I will continue my thought. So I think in terms of what you mentioned, the character development, the science, and sort of this overall premise, I think they're all connected because it is such a personal story. And it's not that you're getting any science information that isn't sort of useful for the overall plot and the characters. Where, like I love the Wilson sisters so much. I think that like having these two twins who are deaf and very different personality wise. One, is the explorer. She's action packed. She wants to go, to the Mariana Trench. That's her dream. That is my literal nightmare. Like, more power to you. You are so brave and cool. Did not really work out in the best way. But then you have
she gone, girl.
She gone. She got pulled into the deep, which we'll get to when we talk about some of these characters. But the fact that they have like this perfect kind of pair of an organic chemist and the only person who can like drive this kind of submersible down into the depths, and then their older sister who's a little like their whole dynamic of she takes care of them, she looks after them, but she's a little bit the odd one out because they're twins and they have this entirely different experience. But the fact that she's not just there as their interpreter, she's there because she's a scientist and she wants to figure out if she can learn how to speak to mermaids. I just find that so fascinating and like just really becomes it just builds up to the point where you have Heather and the loss of this much bigger personality. You feel it immediately because we have gotten these little snippets of them and their dynamic and what they're all about. And Miss Necromancer has a good question. Which one of us are Heathers and which are Hollies? You said Heather? I'm shocked. I'm shocked by this. I gotta say I'd probably be I guess that's technically not fair because I'd probably be a Holly if I'm going by like you know, how I grew up. I was a little quiet, but I think I'd probably be more of a Hallie.
Hallie.
A little bit of an outsider, like words. Sounds like me.
I like that question though. Thanks, Kate.
That was a perfect one. We're seeing definitely a Heather real question. Yeah, which one of us is the older one? I think that I would probably go that way. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the story, the characters,
Oh,
how
that's
we're
actually a really good
feeling.
point. Sorry, just before, because it's on
Mhm,
topic, Kenzie makes a really great point. The first character was death, first one to die.
mhm. I think that's
Well,
very
technically,
fair.
there is a technicality. An entire ship of crew
Yeah,
members has died, and it was the one that we are kind of learning about the most was Tori's sister.
I think that's absolutely under like a super
But I
valid.
get what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for what I obviously I am a hearing person, so my opinion doesn't super matter either way. But I felt that showing her be so cool and tough and determined and like wanting to get to that place, and it's anyone who would have been operating the submersible if it had gone that way would have been
Yeah,
the first one to draw that
first to go.
attention,
Yeah,
because that's really uh, one of the points I wanted to talk about too, was getting the inner monologue of the creatures, thinking about boats as shells and the things that are on them and all of that. Oh yeah, that's very true.
Kate's saying that there is a horror trope that the minority does die
Of
first,
course,
but in
yeah,
this particular case, Heather was so celebrated. She was so strong and independent. She wasn't going to let anything stop her dream. And it wasn't necessarily her ignorance that got her, she didn't wander off and everyone told her not to.
exactly.
It was like this was a part of her job. It was a very necessary thing.
And she
Um,
dreamed of doing this. She was not going to let anyone stop her, and anyone going that far down was going to
yeah,
wake them
it,
up.
it was whoever's going to discover them,
Hmm.
you know, and that's how you discover it. You go into the source.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I we've got a lot to unpack here. The first thing I want to discuss is the fact that the initial start of this book is Victoria's point of view. We learn about Victoria. We learn a lot about her love of the ocean and the sea. Now, we really need to provide some context and preface here. Rachel and I are both Pisces. we are we're water symbols
Water
as a
signs.
start.
Yes.
There in no way or world was I like, oh my gosh, I want to have a
No,
career that has to do
no.
with the ocean and I live and breathe it. I
That's
couldn't relate to that.
outside. That's outside. I'm an indoor
Yeah.
cat. I am an indoor cat.
So Tori was basically born in the ocean and that's where she wants to be.
Oh,
And it was her,
I just
yeah,
want to say
go.
too about
Mhm.
Monterey, California, and that location being this space in
I
California,
kept,
and hmm?
I kept hearing monorail, monorail.
Oh, Hector would be so proud.
We love that. Tell me all about Monterey then.
Well, so there's a good kind of brief description of sort of the scientists that flock to Monterey, the fires that have hit there, and the communities around there. But for me, as a big old English major, literature nerd, Cannery Row, written by Steinbeck, he sort of popularized or like brought attention to Monterey in his writing of the tide pools, the animals. I will find the quote that I'm thinking of and share it in the after show later. But as a young baby literature nerd, I was obsessed with Steinbeck's descriptions of just the coral reefs.
Mm.
Um, it's like really evocative writing. And so I feel like I just thought that was a really interesting place to set it because it everything, she describes it as this like haven for scientists surrounded by, places that are being very impacted by wildfires and climate change, and and also like all the little nerds who come because they like Steinbeck. I was like, that's me. I did that. I went there to do that.
Oh yeah,
That
I
was
like
my
that.
aside. Continue.
There's a little bit of a discussion happening if the ocean's in your blood or if the ocean terrifies you. We've got a little bit of both. Colleen saying that the Monterey Aquarium's pretty amazing too. So the fact that it was Victoria, we learned all about her. We learned about her sister and how her sister went on a voyage and honestly just never came back. And there is we start establishing this myth, which I think imagine as a gosh, some of this stuff was really close to home, Rach. When I'm reading this, listening to it, it's like this entertainment company that has
Oh yeah.
found a lot of success over the last couple of decades. They did this and the footage was found, and then they decided to cover up the truth and let people guess if it was a myth or not. But yeah, people died. And Tori will not rest until she finds out what happened to her sister. So she has gone into sonar specialty, where she has been working with a small group of other biologists, marine biologists, who have their own sort of like I guess, niche study of what they are trying to extract from, more importantly, the Mariana Trench, which I don't know enough about it. There you go. Miss Necromancer says, I pictured Olivia as Maude, kind of.
Mhm.
Ha! The only thing I don't have in common with her is we just discovered that Olivia, who is the entertainment reporter
Mhm.
of Imagine, who got fame by interviewing
Blonde.
famous people,
Blonde.
blonde, did a lot of Comic Cons.
Emma Frost
Basically,
cosplay.
basically specializes
I
in.
forgot because I know when I brought it up, I referenced Jessica Chobot because she had bizarre states, but when I was re-listening to it, I was like, oh yeah. But what you're going to bring up is right before the end of our homework, this first half, we learned that Olivia is autistic.
Yes. And that's
And
not me, that is my brother. But Olivia's autism is very high functioning.
mhm.
She has just tried to sort of learn through pop culture about her sexuality because she's had a pretty oppressed childhood. So that I don't have in common so much. But everything else, it was a checklist.
Absolutely. Well, I felt it was interesting because my boyfriend was reading along with the book because he's cute, and we were talking about the scenes between Olivia and Tori when they're chatting, and he was like, "I feel like there's something going on here that I'm not picking up," and I was like, "I think she's neurodivergent. I think Olivia, like, I didn't because I didn't remember the specifics, but I was like." This feels familiar in how she
Right.
engages with people and the and also they were just like flirting and like commiserating. But when I read that again, I was like, that's okay. Yes, I did pick up on
That
that.
was lost on me, but I'm actually reading another book at the moment that really, really goes into um, a character who's on the spectrum, but in a way where it's like they really truly explain the differences in how the brain works and what's normal for some and not normal for others, and like just taking that extra step to kind of really explain it,
Mhm.
and then also provide sort of like ways to help aid with that, what explanations are helpful as well. And I kind of forget because I'm so close to it. My brother, who's 3 years older than me, is on the autistic spectrum. And it's become very, very normalized for me. And I can recognize those traits, and I have all the patience in the world with it. Whereas I feel like if people aren't familiar, don't understand it, can't recognize it, can
Mhm.
get quite frustrated with it because there can be quite a disconnect. And there's an expectation that everyone can understand not only subtle, but unspoken and unlearned social cues that
And
we
there's
just
so
happen
many
to understand.
different elements too, I think, on that spectrum, on any kind of like neurodivergent spectrum. And I've been reading a lot about it because of my ADHD, but not, you know, not really ever being treated for it or, acknowledging it until a couple of years ago and just realizing how much the systems we live in are built for a different type of brain and a different
Mhm.
way that the brain works. And really, um, I really enjoyed rereading this after I've been on a lot of those journeys myself, and just like learning about them because there was just something immediately when I met her again. I'm rereading it. It's been a couple of
Mhm.
years. And I was like, because she does remind me of you in so many ways, but in the internal sense, I was like, I
Oh my
get
gosh, as if you and I were combined. We love this book.
great girl.
We are both a character. One of the well, that was actually going to be my original question. The protag, it was supposed to be through Victoria's point of view, but it switches. So then we
Mhm,
actually start focusing through Hallie, the older sister's point of view,
mhm,
and her relationship with her sisters. So it's kind of great. And this is why I love the character development. And Lisa, who's in the chat, her and I often will struggle with books that really focus on the world building and we just don't get enough
mhm,
character, because the connection is what propels the story for me. And I really like that when we switch this third person point of view perspective, we are able to learn a lot more insular information about these characters. And the fact that it started with Victoria, Tori, and then it was Hallie, and then it's Olivia. We are really focusing on the women of this
mhm.
maritime, which is
And
quite cute.
Jillian Toth.
Gillian Hoth is another one who's so, so strong, and I've already cast her in my mind. And this is the
Who?
thing. Do you know for some reason, the woman in The 40-Year-Old Virgin who runs the eBay store for Steve Carell's character?
Yeah,
Her.
oh, hold on.
Uh-huh.
Catherine Keener. That is the
She's
romantic lead with Steve
yeah,
Carell?
uh-huh.
Catherine
She's
Keener.
she's
That's great.
Gillian in my
I
head.
love this. I love it.
But I
Yeah.
know that I think Gillian is Spanish.
I don't know. Again,
Mm.
I'm not picturing anyone. I'm just like, this one blonde.
She blonde.
This one blonde.
Oh, J. Bun Rock says
Julianne
Julianne
Moore is
Moore.
good too. The
Mhm.
other
Someone who's like,
Yeah, I
get
feel
in
like
there.
there's something to be said, not just what you were saying about what you and Lisa talk about, which I think we all agree, like character, like I love great world building and lore and all of that, but I need that character development, that connection. But I also it's
But
it's hard to bring this many characters together and have them all be different, have different voices, be unique perspectives. And I felt like I really met this like cast of characters who felt like very real people instead of like they all have the same kind of like quippy like I feel like in a
mhm,
lot of books,
mhm.
a lot of characters they start to sound the same. Definitely on
Yeah, they're a bit two-dimensional.
TV shows, once they get popular,
Yeah.
you're like,
Mhm.
ones that I love, but you're like, everyone kind of is now sounding the same because that's, the humor or the seriousness. And yeah, I love hating, Tori's ex and then what's Olivia's cameraman, Gary?
Mm-mm. Oh, um, Ray.
Ray. I was
Mhm.
kind of there.
I
Gary.
pictured Ray as being Islander. Okay, so we're just in the comments catching everyone up. My default was that, which actually I should check my bias on. So thank you, everyone. She's Islander,
Mm.
um, Toth. And everyone is saying that, well, not everyone, but enough people are saying that Gina Torres is the perfect Gillian Toth. And that is now what 100% she is in my head. Now I've
I
replaced,
love
that is
her.
perfect casting. But I will say, though, um, Gillian Toth is Islander, and I just really want to kind of emphasize what her nationality is, because you're right. The descriptors can happen quite quickly, and then all of a sudden, like if you don't grab it, you've already kind of pieced it together in your own mind. But
Or
you
you
know,
don't at all.
or nothing at all. Ray, I pictured as Maui from the Disney movie.
Oh, sure.
Yep,
I
big
so the
dude.
big dude, little teddy bear, big dude, like a side.
Oh, what a sweetheart. I didn't think his time would be up that quickly. I thought that he would live, because you start looking at horror tropes and it's like
Mhm.
killed, panic alert, then usually mauled or like injured, but still
But
in the
not,
game.
yeah,
And they usually and Ray did not last. He
no,
got his face eaten off.
and I love the stakes are so high because everyone on the last voyage gone. No one is safe. It could be absolutely, the exact same thing could happen. And I do really love too in the beginning, even before, almost before we get to meet Tori, the sort of intro and the little vignettes in between zones, as the way the book is laid out, where you get pieces of Gillian Toth's, you know, talks in universities and things like that, or a statement from Imagine Entertainment or things like that. And those give you even more little tidbits into them. But I thought it was super effective to kind of start the book with a little bit of a breakdown of the footage that was recovered,
Yes.
why
There's
people
no
thought it was a
mystery.
hoax.
There's so much information, and you get all the information you need before we start the voyage. And I kind of love that. And like I said, it could lend itself to having some very slow moments because we've been given all the information. We know what these mermaids look like. We have an academic history about all of them. We have the personal impact where they've killed a sister. We have, you name it, we've got the information. We're not having to piece things together or pay attention, but it's still compelling because we have so many characters. I think we're starting to cast Theo Blackwell, and Miss Necromancer saying here, I love that he's supposed to be this cold, strong face of Imagine Entertainment, but he also has a disability. I will say that we have heard about 2 injuries that have used a jellyfish medicine kind of combination to fix this up. And it, again, all the information's right there. So when they do a massive breakdown on Theo's nerve damage, where they have extracted sort of jellyfish technology, nerve damage, repairing, to inject into the body to help it. And it's like very funded by Imagine even.
I mean, that's
Hold on to that.
yeah.
That's a nugget of information that came
There's
up
a
twice,
lot
which
of
is not an
fun
accident.
sort of hints about like, what is this really about? Or like,
Mhm.
there are a lot of different motivations, and a lot of the scientists don't actually believe it. They're like, that was a hoax, whatever. But they are always looking for funding, and they're like, okay, well, I can go and get all of this stuff. But a lot of them don't really believe what's happening. And the other thing I love about it is sort of like, I just rewatched Titanic because I saw it
Do
on
you wanna
whatever
cry?
it's streaming on. It was um
Come back, Jack.
no, I didn't cry, but when I was a kid, I had the double VHS, and I was obsessed with Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, I had a
Yeah,
scrapbook. Do you remember
you're a
those
person.
like gel pens that would write on black paper? Did you have like?
Yes,
So I had a
yes.
whole scrapbook, like 1999, because Romeo and Juliet too.
The first ever CD.
But great soundtrack. But excuse me,
Meow.
did you hear it? But I was watching it, and when I was a kid, I actually really loved the second VHS, which is when everyone dies. But it's because it's just such a like tech. It's not because everyone dies. It's because it's such a like filmmaking wise, like a technical like masterpiece of all of these different moments of it. But it reminded me rereading this of that, where you have some people who are aware of the submersible and what's happened. You have, we're going to see the reaction to Ray in the next sections, but they don't have, like, they're out in the middle of nowhere. They have phones and, a download sort of server situation for what, information and data can be shared. But it's not like whoever's in charge is going to be like, BT dubs, we found like, so there is,
I felt that was a bit of a loophole in the narrative, if I may. Oh my gosh, it took me that entire time to get her fat butt over here. Girl, come on. She was like eyeing off his treat. I'm like, if you get kitty, I get doggy.
No, I know. If you need to sell anyone on book club, say, do you like dogs? Do you like cats? Do you like books? We got something. I have a fruit fly in my apartment, I'll say it. And Hup is just jumping right out of the
Oh,
way,
good.
trying to get
Burn that place.
I know.
So,
You thought that
oh,
was
what
a little convenient? Because I felt like
yes.
it reminded me of Titanic where you're on like, if you think about it, where it's not like they have cell phones. A lot of people are in their space, they're doing their science stuff. They're not really
Mm,
even, like, engaging with the people around them. So it's
yes.
coming
But with
through word of
Titanic,
mouth.
they didn't go on wondering if something was bad was gonna happen. So here's my loop, like,
Yeah.
disconnect that I'm struggling with. Every single person on this vessel is a scientist or someone who understands something really smart. So
Yeah.
they're the best, most brilliant minds all in one ship. Yes, there's up to 400 people on here. Totally understand that. And they all have a job to do. And it's a big ship. I get that as well. They are going on knowing what the objective is. The objective is that they are trying to find evidence of these mermaids that killed an entire ship full of people.
Mhm.
So, with that objective going in, when little Douglas and whatever are looking out in the ocean and these lights are under the water but too deep to be light refractions, and then they start denying, I'm like, you know what you're looking for. You know to report anything out of the ordinary. And I wonder if they're just the denial is if it's true and this is a
We're
deadly thing.
absolutely effed, yeah.
But denial and scientists, that doesn't really gel for me.
Well, there's also the crew, right? So there's the people on the crew, and then there we also have to talk a little bit about ego for almost everyone involved in this because you have some of the most brilliant minds who are focused on whatever they're researching. They have tunnel vision. And you also have Blackwell and Imagine Entertainment. And, I think there's a mention when Heather perishes, and they have all signed a bajillion way. Like I think from my perspective, from this half, even the first time I read it, there's weird that you can't trust Imagine Entertainment. They
Yeah.
covered it up before. I feel like
There's a
they
death clause in the
Mhm,
contract. Like, you
exactly. So I think
yeah,
that alerting everyone or sharing specific pieces of information is not in
got
their
it.
best interest, and so they're not doing it. And so the people who are there and think, I know that absolutely cannot be real. I'm a scientist. Like it's just doctored, but whatever. I'll take your millions of dollars and this trip out into the Mariana Trench. And again, like some of them are so deep in their lab, they're not coming up
Yeah.
for air.
Miss Necromancer makes a really great point exactly on this. But Maude, they don't believe it. They still think it's a hoax. Scientists deny all the time. If it doesn't fit into their small scope of knowledge, they don't even want to deal with it. And continues to say that scientists are smart only in the thing that they're studying. Often they aren't smart in other ways. And that's the funding. The funding for science is
Exactly.
everything. You would absolutely risk going on a voyage with a bunch of Mulder wannabes if you could get that coinge.
Yes.
That's
And
important
for
to
the
know.
aides and the people were, there are the scientists, there are the people that they brought with them, all of them.
Have
It's
their own agenda.
so it's that community too, even just thinking about what little, what we know about Victoria and her ex who's on the ship too, and all of the everyone has their own goal, their own motivation, and they are extremely intelligent driven people, but you can get tunnel vision in that
And I
regard.
think that with the death of Heather as well, we are seeing more and more of an ununified group who have very opposite motivations and objectives. And so what was originally a study to get information, everyone, you're saying, yeah, exactly right. Everyone's got their own agenda. You've got Tori and now Hallie who are hell-bent set on revenge. You've got Jillian who just wants to stay alive. She just needs an ounce of evidence and she wants out.
But
So
also she
everyone's there
has
for very different.
survivor's guilt because she's the one who inspired this voyage and
Voyage in
then
the
didn't
first
go
place.
on it. So she has that. You've got the
Mm.
hunters, which I know you had a question about, and someone in the chat had a good casting. Who she is on Severance. She was on Dollhouse, and I believe Firefly. Mad. I'm gonna look it up.
Spell it out.
I just can't remember the name. So, oh, that's a good point.
Oh, there you go. Good.
Uh,
Who is it?
I'm pulling it up. I think that's who they said. Whoever said it.
Oh,
Put it.
Daikin. Yeah. Daikin
Yes.
Lochman.
Yes.
She's great. She's Australian Asian. That's 100% correct.
Mhm.
I have a real problem with. Did I write a question on this?
Yeah, you
I think
did.
I got Frankie. Which of these characters fall into stereotypes? I truly do not think that even though she's of Japanese descent and is Australian, that she was born and raised a hunter from a whaling family as an Australian. I don't know. That for me sits a little funky. Australia is very, very known for not only having charity organizations, but like a dedicated team to preserving whales in life.
Oh, really?
And we notoriously don't have guns. So for this Australian Asian woman to be like hell bent set on killing with guns, I personally was like, nah, choose someone else, hey. But at the same time, Australia is so underrepresented that it's kind of nice. They're like, hey, we'll take the villain
We're in
because
there. Yeah.
she's so gonna die. They're so gonna die. They're 100% gonna die. And the most unrealistic part about that whole thing wasn't the fact that these were a married couple that was so like turned on by killing things that they found each other. What the most unrealistic part was that they were getting paid the same amount.
Oh, I was gonna say was that they're not American. Because, like, if we're talking
All
about
right, we got misogyny and we got Kenzie said, "Hey Maude, how did you like the accent in the audiobook?" Listen.
I did. I was like, ooh,
Hmm.
ooh.
To be fair, 1 in 100 people can somewhat do a passable Australian accent to a point where I'm not mad. She's not one of them.
Yeah, I
There's just words that I'm wincing. We gotta get the guns and then go to the
Mm.
starboard.
Here's a good point again from Kate. That was the other part too. Yeah.
You know what? And I really adore sort of like using tropes, and I think it was actually Kate who pointed it out, where it's like if I can't attach something to a previous pop culture example, then I actually really struggle kind of like with the concept,
Mhm.
which was so cool to learn about with Gideon the Ninth, which was space lesbian necromancers in space in the last book
That's
we
been
did
on
for
my. I
Geek.
know you guys just did it for book club.
Love it or hate it. Love it or
It's
hate it.
been on my list forever, but
Ain't
it's
my book.
long, isn't it?
No,
No, it's
it
not.
ain't my
Maybe it
book.
just. I don't know why.
They were genre blending. I think you'd really like it.
I, I feel like.
But for this particular instance, this was very much again, Jurassic Park, and it's going to come up a lot because it's the horror trope of like the monster, the
Mhm.
animal. It's the shoot her, shoot. So that's what the guy looks like. He's literally like I plucked him from Jurassic Park, and he's now in
Yeah.
this book.
Well, I
Yeah.
think too, there's another piece even beyond, the characters and the science and the straightforward, setup ish, straightforward ish, is sort of other movies, books, etc. in this vein that are about Mother Nature biting back in some way. About you look at obviously Godzilla or Jurassic Park and this idea that
It's been a hot minute since I've done my
I
tier.
know
It's
I
also
haven't heard.
possible
I
for my
have. I
Godzilla.
request at least 3 more dinosaur roars at some point during Comic-Con, but you have to surprise. You have to surprise me.
Oh, I think you said you have to suppress it. So I'd be like,
no, surprise me. No, like I request 3 dinosaur yells during
got it.
Comic-Con when we're together,
I
but
have
I
to
don't wanna know
surprise
it's
you.
coming 'cause
One
I
of
will
them will be suppressed.
there, at least one. The idea of the you know, I loved there was something about getting the sirens, the mermaids perspective under the water a little bit where they're like and just how sort of how they think about what they think a ship is, what they think
Mm,
what they've and figuring out what that looks like later. But just this idea that they went down to the place where we're not built to go, technically, people,
yeah,
and
yeah.
when you wake up something like that, I love I'm not articulating it well, but the kind of idea of these monster movies showing humanity's hubris
Greed?
and mistakes
Yeah.
and ego and um
Mhm.
just again this laser
Cool.
focus on what they want without thinking about all of the ramifications of what that
Bigger
means.
picture.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that's another element to this that I find really interesting that at least a few of them really believe this is what's happening and they are going to do it anyway with a company that almost no one who's going trusts. Anyone that we know really well is sort of, on the fence. Um, so yeah.
I also like learning about this fictional creature, but like through a scientific lens. And it really kind of like makes it super realistic. So hearing and learning what they're studying about, whether it's migration patterns, the fact that they are always like in pods, packs, what are they, collections? What
School.
is the collection? School. Yeah, that's the thing. They can't even like define the language on
Are
what
they
to
amphibian?
call
Are they mammalian?
them.
What's the
The
deal? Yeah.
description, but the fact that there are like what 3 different languages or like ways that they
Mhm.
communicate where it's like they sign to each other, they can vocalize, and they can mimic. No, was it mimic and steal, I
Yeah.
think were,
Well, yeah,
and that was
steal
the
and mimic were sort of the same of they can make noise to each other, but only if the signing isn't like
that's like a
it's the
first, the
wrong
first
moment for it because they have this like bioluminescence too. So even though they're
yeah,
way deep in the very scary, deep, dark ocean, I
they
hated
can
it.
still
Like
see each
that
other.
fish with the
The
light.
anglerfish.
Oh,
Mhm,
oh, I hate it so much. But they exactly. But they sign because they can see each other down there. But the mimicry is to lure people in,
so cool.
brings you back to the
So
legend of
cool.
sirens sounding like these sad help me beautiful women, but or even the whales. And the fact that Tori
Mhm,
is the one who says right from the beginning, whales don't repeat their
mhm,
songs. This is
mhm.
the exact same messaging, and like that sort of it shows you right off the bat that not only is she there for her sister, but she's also a really good scientist and is putting this together.
I think the bigger, like, cool discovery was that they were then, um, mimicking the sound of the ship, the engines. So they could actually disguise it and project back what their engine sounded like. So
And
that
and
was super cool.
the mucus, and they're like, oh, just it's so
But the
gross.
fact that when they start mimicking, it's a way to kind of, like, lure their prey, and that's when
Mhm.
they hunt. And that beautiful moment, this is the same as, again, Jurassic Park, the same moment
Mhm.
as, like, the water, the ripple in the water with the Tyrannosaurus Rex steps,
Mhm.
where you're noticing you've got the information and now you're kind of piecing it, and that tension's building. And so
Mhm.
Tori's relaying this discovery where there's 3 of them. They do this when it's then, this when it's then, and then this when they're hunting. And this guy's like still all
Louise,
the colors drained from his face.
I love
And he goes, "Did you just hear what you said?" And she's like, "This fact?" And he's like,
science.
"No." That's what they do when they're hunting, and that's what they're doing now. They are hunting us. Dun, dun, dun. So that
I
was like really, really cool. But then again, you have this disconnect of people going, we have to explore everything. We need more samples. We need to save. We need to send the dolphins in, which apparently the dolphins consented to. And Julian's like, no,
I mean,
Julian,
that's a
no
very
pause.
good point that everyone should be aware of. Dolphins, basically as smart as apes. They should be designated as people.
But they don't get as much luck because they don't have no thumbs. That's literally
Makes
it.
so sad. I know. I was.
So they're using the dolphins to lure as well. And then, of course, you've got Gina who's just saying, you're just providing a food source. They're just going to eat them. And
Yeah.
when they're done with eating them, they're going to eat us. I
Mm-hmm.
do think, though, where it's like, when people die, it's like, oh, well. And I understand that they're not trying to create this mass hysteria. But I feel like still there's 82 deaths and there's 85% of the ship that either don't even know or don't care.
I feel
Well,
like, yeah, I feel like between, I think we are meeting the scientists who do care, not just because they have a personal connection. There are other, Tori obviously cares, even though she has her own personal connection. But I think they do a good job of sort of showing how outside of a lot of the people that we are getting to know, they are really only focused on what they want.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
And
I
that's going to be the death of them. You watch.
and I also think that that's sort of like in the intro in the beginning where you do get to see what they are. That does help build the tension because you're just waiting for shit to go real
Because
south.
the danger and they're just not
They're not
prioritizing
getting it,
their
and
safety.
how
Yeah.
fast, like setting it up in the beginning, how fast they move, that they can be out of they're not flopping around up there, you know what I mean? Like they the way that they like it reminds me actually of Ursula in The Little Mermaid when she
Yes.
bursts out of her
Mhm.
wedding dress and just like, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But I think that's why that Ray's death was so significant because this is a big, burly, strong ex-MMA fighter, wasn't
Yeah,
he? Like this,
yeah.
if someone had a chance and the only thing he was able to do was push Olivia away to save her life. It
I
was
know. I
the
love
only thing he
him.
was physically capable of doing. But
I want to know.
again, they're on the vessel. I was going to say they're on the vessel. They knew exactly what they were there for. They've been reporting on it. They're trying to find the story. And yet, as
Yeah,
soon as they look overboard and think it's a woman, without a second hesitation, they're trying to rescue them. And it's way too late before they realize.
I mean, it's also human. It's like they're preying off of human nature too, because you hear, it's like my cats meow at me because they think that's baby. Like that's what I sound like. Cats meow because they're like, I'm baby, listen to me, and
And it works.
it works, and every time. But
Well,
it
a lot of criminals, a lot of like
exactly
bad
pretend to
people
be hurt,
exploit
pretend to
the
be injured,
kindness.
exactly, and I think,
They exploit the kindness of people. Yeah.
and also just even if you believed, if I would never sign up for this mission. You could not pay me enough money. I would be like, absolutely not. Send me the live stream. I'm not going. I have no skills that make sense for this voyage, and I'm not doing
Did you know science has a C in it? And they're like, get out. I'm like,
it. But like,
okay.
even if I somehow ended up in my own personal nightmare on this on this voyage, me believing that it's real and hearing someone cry and being like, "Oh my god, is someone hurt? Did someone fall off?" and then seeing it, like talk about going into shock, not believing
Yeah.
what you're seeing. You're like it would really take, I think, a lot to react in that moment, and mostly luck. Like anyone who has not encountered a mermaid yet is already ahead of the curve because they can learn from all of these things.
True.
Um, I would love to know your predictions that you put in
I got a
here
few.
because I can't answer, but I want to know yours before we.
A couple of things really quickly, though. People are saying that this is super, super horror. Now, I am so adverse to horror. I am not I mean, I guess I'm not I truly think that, like, deep, vast ocean is a valid and really scary fear to have. But Lauren here is saying, "This book terrified me. I had to put it down 5 times during the reading because the depths of the ocean were portrayed so creepily." And then
Yeah.
even Tim and, Daisy coming in saying, "Yeah, I'm kinda worried about the gore and the horror. I'm just not used to reading horror." I am loving this. I love it. I'm like, "Okay," and I don't like horror, but
I
I know enough
know,
about sort of, like,
I'm getting
tropes.
you. Thrillers and horrors and gothic horror.
So I have a couple of predictions here,
Tell me,
questions
I'm
that
gonna
are
keep.
circling my mind.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I think the flaw, like the big um, problem that's going to happen on the ship is what I mentioned before, that there's a split in motivation. So some people are there to kill and revenge, and other people are there to get science and evidence and research, and then other people don't want to be there. And that disconnect, I think, is going to unravel the 400 strong crew. I do want to put it out there. Who do you think is going to die? Who's going to survive? I think Tori has to survive. I think Tori and Olivia are going to survive together. And we'll let them smooch.
You know how
I
I feel about it.
let them smooch. There's got to be something about the fact that Gillian and Theo are still technically married. I don't think both of them can go because they've got children and they're waiting. But I do look out for language like, you're going to make it. Or, like those little setups that they have where it's like, oh, you're a
Feel
goner.
like they followed those tropes so far?
Yes and no. Some
Okay.
and none.
Mhm.
I want to know if these bodies are being eaten, if it really is a food source, or if they're being transformed.
Into what?
The freaking mermaid. Were they once human? And that's a evolution, devolution. But like, what do they do in the bodies? Is it just a food source or is it something more than that? That's something I'm asking. Now, there's also a cluster in the Mariana Trench. Are they just located in a secret little area because it's very, very unvisited and it's their space and their territory? Or are they guarding something? And that's why they've only been attacking when, oh, don't play poker. You were like,
No, I did that on purpose. I'm
okay.
controlling my face. I'm trying
Yeah.
trying to confuse you.
Sure. Okay. So I'm wondering if they're guarding something, which is why they're maintained in this one spot. And I want to know what they're guarding. They're the only questions that are really circling my mind. But for anyone else who hasn't finished the book, what are yours? Where are
Yes.
you at with this? The hunters are going to go. They're done. As soon as they were like, we love blood and killing shit. I'm like, yeah, you're so getting killed by them. Like, maybe you'll take one out, but likely nah.
I'm excited for part 2.
I think it's going to go from 0 to 100 real quick. The fact
Now
that
I can tell you, yeah, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, I wonder if people are enjoying it or if they're finding it slow. And also the point that we're at is, we've done a lot of building up.
yeah.
So
And we have all the information. We just need to know sort of what the resolution's going to be. I don't know. I think there's going to be a vestibule or like one sort of ship that makes it. But the fact that this one mermaid entity, whatever we're calling it, has gone up onto the ship and has basically done a surveillance and has taken the biggest bit of meat and has lived to tell the tale is going to report back. And now that that's happened, everything's going to go to shit. Yay.
yay.
But the next thing that we're going to get to is obviously the dolphins, these poor bloody dolphins that are being sent to their doom, that are able to communicate, that have been taught the sign language that they've seen so far. But I wonder if there's anything about this jellyfish.
All good. There's a lot of Chekhov smoking X. You know what I mean? There's a lot of moments, references, things where you're like, is this going to be relevant? Or is this a miss, or is it just a red
There's
herring?
a lot of information. I'm sifting through it. Yeah.
I told you that. Sorry, I was thinking of Clue, where he's like, "I told you it was just a red herring. Socialism was just, or communism was just a red herring."
Nice.
Anyway,
No, that's so
your
good. I love
homework
that. Finish your
is
book.
to finish the book. Finish the book, and then tell us book good,
Book good?
book good.
Book
Maude,
good.
where are we going right
Are we
now?
gonna do the after show?
Are we? I thought we were doing. No, we're gonna do it next
I
week.
think well,
I
next
got a
week
task
it could be
too.
one of 2 things. Yeah, okay.
That's
Next
true.
week's gonna be one of 2 things. So, if you wanna have a chat, I'm gonna be in the comments of reading.
I'll go in there too.
We're gonna chat it out.
Mhm.
And then next week we'll either see you for the after show, possibly something else. TBC, post CDCC. But if you do want to get involved in the like a little official after show that we do, head over to patreon.com/geekbomb. For the $5, not only do you unlock the Discord there, you get access to the hashtag reading section where we talk about books 24/7, and you also are able to be in the voice call that we do after usually the second episode on Nerdist, where no one else can see it. It doesn't live anywhere
It
else.
gets real.
It's a secret little society there.
Where we talk about our
And
feelings.
I also do we talk about our feelings. And I also do, Geek Bomb Book Club for the first 2 Wednesdays of the month. If you want a second book to read every single month and have accountability and a cool community, and you get to jump
After
on
Comic-Con, I'm doing it. I need to, because I need to read
our
things
next book is The House on the Cerulean Sea.
Oh, great. That was one of my picks for one of our last votes. Okay, great. I'm gonna
We're
do that.
doing that one. We're
Sweet.
doing that one. KP Dub says, "Well, what happens in book chat stays in book chat."
Exactly.
That's right. Black belt Kenzie, maybe we will know. Maybe. You're very smart. You should be scientists on the vessel. But make sure you do sign up. You help Geek Bomb. It's a small business. We just celebrated 10 years.
Congratulations on 10 years of Geek Bomb last week.
Well, I'm going to extend that because I realized that we had our 10-year. It was very last minute, and so we're going to be rolling out some more
It's like a
celebrations.
birthday, whole month, 2
Whole
months.
month, baby.
What do you want?
There's Black Belt says you're gonna love House in the Cerulean Sea. Yay! Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate the geek anniversary. It's killing me, but we're still doing it. So yay! Make sure you sign up for Patreon. We got a brand new 10-year anniversary little gift for those that sign up. Love you all. Mwah, mwah.
Yes.
We're gonna go to Comic-Con.
We're going to Comic-Con. Tune in to Nerdist. Tune in to Maude Social. She's coming down with us, baby. We're hanging
I'm
out.
doing Nerdist news now. Yay!
You're the
It'll be a lot of fun.
Now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're both very good at puns. But yeah, we're going to be down there. Make sure to follow along. But otherwise, we will see you next Wednesday at the normal time, 5 p.m. Pacific. That is July 27th. And we're going to be talking about the end of this book. I will not only be wearing a mask, I personally will be avoiding the floor at all costs, which I'm lucky to do because my job will keep me away from it. But yeah, deeply nervous, but going to be as safe as we can. We will see you next
hoping
week.
my booster kick fighting. Yep. I haven't got it so far. So
Me either.
But yeah, mask up. Oh no. I've had it, but I haven't. I should have gotten it in the time where I've had my booster.
Yes,
So
okay.
this booster's like, that's all. All right.
We're going to protect each other. We love you all. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Mwah.